And now, please welcome Elizabeth Belfer.
Good morning. The central goals of MAS's NYC Legacies campaign are incredibly ambitious and incredibly important: a redone Penn Station and a reinvigorated West Midtown Manhattan. With massive new developments like Hudson Yards, Manhattan West, and others coming online in the near future, the issue of the Gateway tunnels again heating up, and 8 years left to go on Madison Square Garden's operating permit, West Midtown is in the midst of almost unprecedented change. The opportunities to have positive effects on this neighborhood for decades to come are enormous, as are the challenges. Next up, we have a series of 3 smart talks on how to shape the future of West Midtown and the key transportation hub that lies at its core. My fellow MAS board member, Vishan Chakrabarty, will return in a few minutes, and we'll also hear from Roger Duffy of Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. But first up, please welcome Jill Lerner of Kohn, Pedersen, Fox to discuss the new West Side Story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and thanks to MAS for focusing on this important topic for all of us as New Yorkers. So yes, I'm going to talk about a coordinated West Side Story since we're engaged in a lot of the pieces of it at KPF. So the first point is that a coordinated story is essential. There's so much happening in terms of transit development or anticipated transit development as in addition to increasing density that we have to think about it or should think about it in a coordinated way. And how does a new Madison Square Garden fit into that story? Because in our view, moving Madison Square Garden is key to unlocking the possibility for a new Penn Station. So last year we talked about the Morgan site, the Morgan Postal Facility site, right adjacent to the High Line as the optimal location for a new Madison Square Garden. If you think about it in terms of future development at Hudson Yards, and a new Penn Station with a green connection, it could create a wonderful anchor for the West Side. If you look at transit, the majority of transit regionally comes to the far west, to the Penn Station area and to this triangle within Midtown. So the 3 major entry portals are the Port Authority, Grand Central, and Penn Station. Interestingly, PATH has an equivalent ridership, but PATH is a more distributed system with many locations landing in Manhattan. But by and large, the majority is still at Penn Station. If you look at this in terms of growth, every single avenue of getting into New York City is projecting over 20% growth over the next 15 years. And median income, all 3 of the major portals all provide opportunities for mixed-use, transit-oriented development with cultural amenities in true commercially viable, vibrant communities. Thus far, there's been a lot of focus on Grand Central in terms of Midtown East access and improving that experience for pedestrians. Port Authority has a new master plan underway, but there really is nothing happening in terms of substantial improvements to Penn Station. So if you look at the current situation, it almost forms a grid on the west side when you think about the number 7 line, which if you haven't taken it, you really should. It's unbelievable. You can get from the Javits Center to Grand Central in 5 minutes. I really believe it's going to be a game changer. And then as everything that's contemplated moves the center of gravity further to the west, including the options for the new Port Authority and including the use of the Moynihan Station for Amtrak. So where would a new Madison Square Garden go? It would go right in the heart of this quadrangle of transportation. Port Authority, it's old, it's aging, congested. This is the current situation, Port Authority in its current location with a big ramp system to lead the buses to the Lincoln Tunnel, and then the Dyer Corridor shown that curvy area in the middle blue that occupies a huge amount of real estate getting people in and out of the Lincoln Tunnel. All of their options involve transit-oriented development, whether it's a new station, new bus parking garage, combined with commercial development, or another one of their 5 options where the whole station moves a block west and allows for a lot more of more development on the Port Authority site. But in any case, the gravity is moving west. If you look at Madison Square Garden, it has moved around a lot. In 1879, this is the dot is where Madison Square Garden is, and the diagram is the location of density, residential density in the city at the time. So if you look 1879, 1890, it's still in the same location, densest area of Manhattan on the Lower East Side. Then as the density moves up, Madison Square Garden moves up. 1968, it moves back down, paired with Penn Station. And now, as if it moves to the west, again, paired with some increasing density on the far west side. Another way to look at this is looking at it three-dimensionally. Here's in 1930, and then as it moved in 1968, and then what it would look like in relationship to ongoing development on the far west side. So last year we talked about this location, how we could develop a green corridor connection between a new Penn Station, new Gateway project, and a new Madison Square Garden with great civic spaces that would allow for a much better arena for New Yorkers, better neighborhood connections, integration with commercial development, public services surrounding neighborhood sports activities. And so if you look at the whole thing, a few years ago, 10 years ago, this is what Manhattan, the far west side, looked like. Big gaping holes to the puzzle. First, Javits was renovated. The High Line was developed and Chelsea was developed. Hudson Yards is well under construction. The Brookfield site is under development. And then we could consider a new Madison Square Garden on the Morgan site, a new Penn Station, and then ultimately improving the land around the Dyer corridor. And you would have a coordinated picture on the far west side. Thank you so much.